Hello and welcome to our London History Podcast, where we share our love of London, its people, places and history. This podcast is designed for you to learn things about London that most Londoners don't even know, all in 20 minutes. I am your host, Hazel Baker, qualified London tour guide and CEO of londonguidedwalks.co.uk. If you like what you hear, then please rate and review on Apple or Google Podcasts. Thank you to all of you who have left a review. It's really very much appreciated. I read every single one. You've wanted videos. You want podcasts to be longer and also for better quality transcripts. And in light of that, we have made a few changes. We are now inviting you to become our patron, which will financially support the podcast. You can support our work and the unique content we provide from as little as £5. For more information of how to support us and or to access recommended readings and related blog posts, please go to londonguidedwalks.co.uk/podcast. Get that cup of tea, put your feet up and enjoy. In my episode 2, Fantastic Beasts, I discuss many of London's current and former beastly residents, but today's subject warrants an episode just for them. Today we're going to Crystal Palace Park in south-east London. It was a Victoria pleasure park surrounding the site of the former Crystal Palace building from the Great Exhibition of 1851. Joining me today is Sarah Jane Slaughter, who is here to tell us more about the unusual residents of Crystal Palace Park. Hello, Sarah.
Hello, Hazel. Lovely to meet you.
Lovely to meet you. Thank you so much for taking the time out today. You are going to have to explain to everybody why we have dinosaurs in Crystal Palace Park.
I will. The beginning would probably be in around 1851, which was when Hyde Park saw the big fair, which showed lots of science and technology from across the world, and that was housed in something called the Crystal Palace. It was given that name by a newspaper because it was all sparkling in the sun. It was all made of glass and metal. That was only supposed to last for a year, and then after a couple of years, private money was raised and they decided to rebuild the Crystal Palace elsewhere and to put together a permanent exhibition space so that people could come to the Crystal Palace and be entertained and also learn. It's quite a Victorian idea, so that people would learn at the same time as being excited and interested in something. And part of this huge new exhibition was an area of the park which is set aside specially to demonstrate, it was a part of the British history of mining and taking things out of the ground. And obviously the things that were taken out of the ground were very old things, and they were starting to look at these materials and think, well, this earth is not quite as young as we thought it was. It's a lot older than we thought it was. And so these are all very new ideas. And what the Victorians wanted to do was to express this to the public and to show them, actually, the earth is not a few thousand years old as we thought. It's more millions of years old. And this area of the park was set aside to demonstrate the layers of the earth. So any rocks that you see around that area have been brought there by the Victorians. They're not natural to London. So it was demonstrating different parts of the UK and demonstrating the age of the earth like that. And part of learning about the earth and its layers and its age is learning about the extinct animals that also were being dug up in those mines. And so extinction was also quite a new idea. People didn't realise that there had been animals before. And you had things like, I suppose people would have been digging up bones, and then that would have led to myths and legends and things like people trying to figure out what on earth is this? They've got this huge, what is clearly a leg bone of an animal, but it's this big.
Bone style.
But this was the time when people were starting to learn exactly what they were. And so the idea was to demonstrate both the Earth's layers So when you go to Crystal Palace, you'll see a sort of cliffside that shows the layers of the Earth strata, and also the animals that would have populated the Earth at particular times.
So people can walk around the park. It's all open to the elements. And then you're actually able to walk through chronological order, aren't you?
That's right, yes. So the animals are displayed in a very specific order, because the artist who built them, his name was Benjamin Waterhouse Hawkins. He was a local to Crystal Palace. And he wanted to show with the display exactly the science involved. So it was very important to him to demonstrate that it wasn't just, fantastical animals that he was building. There was actual science behind it. And he worked with the most eminent scientists of the time to make sure that the animals were as accurate as they possibly could be.
And of course, we know a lot more about dinosaurs now than we did back then.
We do, yes.
Yeah, there are 2 iguanodon, aren't there? 2 different versions. Tell us about those.
Well, there are, some of the animals are repeated, so they've got several different sculptures depicting the same animals. The 4 sculptures that depict dinosaurs are the megalosaur, the hylaeosaur, and iguanodon. There's 2 iguanodons, and the reason for that is because at the time that the sculptures were built, there was no consensus in science about the way an iguanodon would have stood. And so some scientists said, well, we think that the legs would have been underneath the body. So kind of like a modern day rhinoceros or elephant. And other scientists said, no. The legs would have been sprawled out like a lizard. So like a modern day iguana. And Benjamin Waterhouse Hawkins took this and he thought, well, there is no consensus. What do I do? Who do I go with? And brilliantly, he said, I'm going to do both. So I'm going to make 2 sculptures that represent this argument in science to show that there was no agreement. And so what we can see today is that crystallization of an argument, of a scientific disagreement, which is fantastic because it encapsulates that science isn't immutable. It changes according to, as soon as new knowledge comes to the fore, then people adapt and they say, well, okay, it wasn't like that as we thought, it's like this instead. And you still see this in science today when they're talking about dinosaurs. Things change and they go back and forwards, and that particular piece of artwork demonstrates exactly that. Yeah.
Well, you can see that with the raptors, can't you, with the Jurassic Park? I know part of it is due to the complications with computer software, but, the last ones are much smaller and they've even got a few feathers on their forehead.
I'm not getting into the Jurassic Park.
Have I hit a sore spot? I'm sorry. But what is nice about him choosing those 2 to do 2, and it actually takes quite a lot of guts to actually make that decision to make the 2 rather than going, actually, you know what, I favour this one, or this will be easier to make, or this will look more impressive.
Exactly.
So what else do we know about him? What has he done anything else like this?
Benjamin Waterhouse Hawkins was a superstar at the time. He was very well known for making really lifelike sculptures of animals, and he'd only made existing animals before, so this was a real challenge for him. They were going on fragments of bones really, and he was talking to scientists and saying, well, what would this animal look like? And they were saying, well, we're not quite sure. We think the head might have looked like this, but we don't know about the rest of it. And he'd look at it, and using his knowledge of anatomy, he would say, well, okay, this looks a bit like an amphibian jawbone, so I'll put the body of a frog onto this one. And he was engaged in lots of arguments with the scientists because they were saying, you can't represent something until you actually know what it looked like. And he said, well, in my experience as an artist, people won't respond to parts of animals. They want to see the whole thing. Mm-hmm. So there was a real tussle in between them as to whether they should depict the whole animal or not. And in fact, within only about 10 years or so, people were mocking the sculptures and saying, oh, that's completely wrong. We know much more nowadays. So even though we are still doing that 167 years later, within 10 years already, those creatures were seen as a little bit silly.
So when they were first put in the park and opened to the public, how did people respond to them?
Oh, they were a huge success. So people came from miles and miles just to come and see. Well, it was a Crystal Palace as well, but really to see these creatures and to learn about what happened before. Because remember, this was completely new. This was the idea of extinction was something that people hadn't really thought about before. And so these are controversial ideas, they're challenging ideas. This is before Darwin's Origin of Species was released, and we all know about the sort of controversies that arose from that. So really it was a very exciting thing for people to come and see. They built 2 new railway stations to cope with the amount of visitors that were coming. Hotels sprung up all around the area, and at that point it would have been quite rural, so people would have been coming from other places into the countryside to come and see Crystal Palace Park, this place where you can come and learn and be entertained at the same time.
Wow, it sounds like it really made it a destination.
Yes, it really was, yes.
And what about now? Because I have a little nephew, Luca, who has seen some of the photos. When I tried to entice him to the park, he refuses to go because they're not anatomically correct. What would you say to Luca and little boys and girls like him?
I would say, Luca, what you need to do is transport yourself to 1854 and imagine having a piece of bone in your hand that no one has ever seen before and trying to create an animal out of that, and understand what it looked like and how its body fit together and anatomically, and what colour it might be, whether it had fur or feathers. And that's something that scientists are still doing today. So you would really be doing the same as scientists are still doing now. And when he says they're not accurate, really, for the time, they're the absolute top end of science. This was probably, maybe artists have not been able to work with the top scientists in such a direct way as Benjamin Waterhouse Hawkins did at that time. So although they don't look correct today, also remember, we still don't know what dinosaurs look like, and we never ever will, because there's none here. So that connection between art and paleontology is completely bound together. There's no separating them, because we cannot have photographs, we cannot work on the animals in person. So we have to have artists representing what those animals would have looked like. And that's exactly what they were doing. And that was the first time anybody did it in life size for the public.
Wow, you're getting me all excited again.
Well, Luca's the one that we need to get excited. He's the skeptic.
Yes, absolutely. To Luca, you have been told. Absolutely. And I've only recently found out that they're Grade 1 listed.
They are, yes. With Historic England, they are Grade 1 listed buildings, in fact, because they're hollow. And they last year were put on the at-risk register. This is because they are crumbling. They're in quite bad repair. Some of them have been conserved in the last few years, but others are in desperate need of work to be done on them. And that's very specialist conservation work.
Yeah, I mean, are these the only ones of their kind?
There is nothing like this in the whole world. They are the only ones. This is the first real Jurassic Park. This is the first time that anyone tried to depict dinosaurs for the public in a life-size way. This represents science coming out from behind closed doors and being shared with the public, because it was important for people to understand the world that they lived in, and to know more about it and to be educated.
That's really quite amazing, isn't it? And it gives you a chance to time travel back to 1851 as well.
Absolutely, yes. Well, 1854 for us.
Oh, yeah, sorry, 1854. Yeah, absolutely. So but you've also got some geological illustrations, haven't you, to sort of understand it a little bit more. Tell us a little bit more about those.
Yes. So as I said before, there's a sort of cliffside that's been built in the park. If you're walking from the actual dinosaurs around to the mammals. You'll walk over a bridge, and on the left-hand side of the bridge, you'll see a sort of cliffside. Set into that is a mine, and that was a replica mine that the Victorians built so that Londoners could walk around a mine, which you wouldn't see in London. It was copied from one in Derbyshire, I believe. And so people could see they built stalactites that hung down from the ceiling so that people could understand about those and how they worked. And then they had this sort of cliffside, which we can still see now, and it has layers of different types of rock. So I'm no geologist. I'm an historian, not a geologist. But so if you look at it, and there is signs there and information to explain like what types of rock they are and how long ago they were formed, and that you can also tie that up. If you look along the bridge, there's information showing you which of the animals depicted in the sculptures would have been alive at the time of each layer of rock.
Yeah, really clever, isn't it? I think it's that joining those bits together, and that's where history zings. No matter what time of history you do, but I think that's one of the things I love being a tour guide, is that I'm saying something that happened in history. They might have done it at school, but when they realise that maybe they're standing on that spot where it happened, you see this light bulb moment, and and they get goosebumps, and suddenly the whole outlook on that has changed, and that's what I love about that. And I think here what's nice is that you're able to explore this kind of stuff in your own time. Whereas if you go to a museum, especially with everyone else around you, and they do try and move you around, don't they? They don't really want you standing and looking at something for too long and thinking. But here in the park, you can do that. You've got that freedom to really, your mind is your own limit, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. Yes. It's wonderful to think about people through the years. So, for 167 years, those creatures have stood there, and think about all those millions of people that have come and looked at them and thought, what on earth is this? And then wanted to find out more and learned a bit more. And there's so many different aspects to it. It's not just science. It's not just, we learn about dinosaurs. It's also, we learn about the history of art. We learn about the history of science. We learn about the history of construction materials. And we learn about social history as well, because this is all about people shifting ideas and perceptions about the world they lived in. So it's a fascinating site because there's all sorts of different aspects to it that people can enjoy and take away.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you mentioned that the dinosaurs, some of them are a little bit unloved at the moment, but I know that you're a trustee of the Friends of Crystal Palace Dinosaurs charity. Right. What are you doing to make sure that they're being looked after?
Well, what we do is really sort of advocate for them. We just check up on them. Some of us are local and we're able to go into the park pretty much every day and just have a look and see what's happening. Some of us are working from a bit further away, but we all bring certain skills to the charity to help it blossom really, and to be a strong voice for the sculptures. And we work with the local council, Bromley, and they're the ones who own the site itself. And we also work with Historic England, who have oversight to make sure that these listed sculptures are looked after. And we just make sure that they are really. We raise awareness of them through our social media and through our website so that people understand what they are, that they are unique in the world. There's nothing like them anywhere else. And just to encourage people to learn more about them.
Brilliant. So we are going to share links to the charity and your social media. It's all on the show notes. And we also have some photos that Sarah has kindly shared with us, and we'll put those in the show notes so you can see what we're going on about, especially if you're not anywhere near to London. But if you are somewhere near London, then maybe as lockdown is lifting, you're able to venture to Crystal Palace Park and have a look at these fantastic beasts for yourself, and really get in the mind of the Victorians and how they would have experienced it as well. I mean, even in 2021 they're a marvel, but back then I just, people wouldn't have seen anything like it at all. So how can people support the charity, Sarah?
Oh, well, the best way really is to join us on social media and keep up to date with what we're doing. We've got lots of different projects going on. One of the newest ones actually is asking people for their old photographs of the dinosaurs. So if anyone has any old pictures from being there in the past, maybe 1980s, 1990s, maybe even 1950s, then please do have a look on our website and have a look for the Dinosaur Monitor project.
Wonderful. That gives us an opportunity to get into the loft and look through all the old family photos and see if we have any Crystal Palace dinosaur ones. That's all for now. I really hope you've enjoyed it. If you'd like a longer version of the podcast, or indeed like a video of the dinosaurs themselves, then you can become a patron and support our podcast at patreon.com/London History, where you get a chance to see videos and mini video tours of the places that we cover in our podcast. Big thanks to Sarah for sharing her wonderful knowledge of the Crystal Palace Park dinosaurs, and all links will be on our website, londonguidedwalks.co.uk/podcast, and check out episode 47.